Contributing correspondent Michael Gillen just introduced us to Kathy and Bill, who want to make history by having a baby through the process of human cloning. You also saw the man who is pioneering this effort and has weathered a firestorm of criticism for doing so. He is Panos Zavos, Scientific Director and Chief Embryologist of the Kentucky Center for Reproductive Medicine. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We so appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
And Michael, I'll get to you in a minute, but first, Dr. Zavos, I'll try to explain in the simplest way, so I hope that the viewers can understand. In normal in vitro fertilization, take an egg from the woman, a sperm from the man, put it in a dish, yes, and it unites to create an embryo, which you then put in the woman.
Yes.
Now, this cloning process, you take an egg from the woman, and you change the DNA.
You remove the DNA.
And put new DNA in.
The new DNA, which comes from the donor.
From the donor. And that's all you do. It becomes an embryo. No sperm.
No sperm involved.
No sperm involved. Now, most people would say, I think, that's not natural. That's weird. And that's why I think critics say to you, you're going to create a freak.
Not true, of course. And, you know, they used to say the same thing about in vitro when we decided to do in vitro 25 years ago, that creating a baby in a petri dish or in a test tube,
yes,
it's unheard of. And of course, they were saying exactly the same things, the same arguments to Bob Edwards, the gentleman that developed this technology in 1978 when Louis Brown was born, that he was going to create freaks.
Yes.
He was going to create people that don't belong in this world.
But how do you know that that egg with the changed DNA is going to grow into a normal human being? You don't know that.
Well, the results of various experiments that we have executed, plus the good results, and I must indicate here the good results from many other studies that have been done with success rates up to 100% of normal offsprings born in animal models.
Animals.
Okay?
Only animals.
Only animals.
Not human beings.
That's correct. Indicate that this particular procedure can work in the human with less difficulties than we see in animals. And the reason for that, obviously, is that we in the human arena, we've been doing human IVF, that's manipulating the sperm and the eggs and the dishes and the petri dishes and the test tubes for almost 25 years.
But a lot of mistakes were made with animals, right?
Yes.
Isn't the success rate something like 1%?
1% when Dolly was produced.
Right.
But today,
Dolly the sheep.
Right. But today there are studies that they show successes of 30 and 80% of births from embryo transfer.
Still animals, right?
Yes, still animals.
Okay, let's stop that for a minute and go over to Michael. I think the big curiosity for everyone is, will this little girl that Kathy hopefully will have, will she look exactly like Kathy?
Well, it's an interesting question. Nearly so, about 99% so. The reason she won't be identical is because there is a little bit of DNA left over in the egg that is taken from the younger woman. Because
Kathy doesn't have good eggs, so they're going to take a donor egg.
Correct, because Kathy's eggs are old.
And that donor egg's DNA is going to be taken out, and Kathy's DNA is going to be put in.
Correct, and even though you have removed the nucleus from the donor woman's egg, nevertheless there is a little residual DNA we call mitochondrial DNA that is left over on the outer portions of the egg. So even though you've removed the nucleus, that mitochondrial DNA remains, and it will contribute about 1% of the total DNA. So it'll be Kathy's DNA. Correct. So it'll be Kathy's DNA, which is 99% of the total, and then 1% from the donor mother. Another variation.
Well, let me ask you this: how about personality, sense of humor, liking the same kinds of food?
That's a $64,000 question, although it's very interesting. I covered the story of the Texas A&M scientists who recently cloned a cat, which is a fairly complex animal. And before that, they cloned a bull, a Brahma bull. And one of the things they have noticed with a Brahma bull clone is that he has very much the same mannerisms as the old original bull. So, but no one can tell you. I mean, no one can tell you how much of personality is encoded in the genes. That's the $64 million question, among other things.
Why are you doing this? Because 85% of Americans, according to surveys, don't think it should be done.
Well, obviously they don't, and some of the research that has been done and some of the understandings that we have is that some of those people are against it because of fear of the unknown. And I think that by people knowing about this, and what the complexities may be and the benefits may be, I think more people will accept it. The same ratio of opposition took place back when the IVF business began.
I know, you said that before, and I understand that. It's just that I think with IVF, wasn't there experimentation for this?
Very
your
little.
team,
Very
dear.
little experimentation.
Well, has your team actually experimented with human eggs?
Oh, well, we work with human eggs every day.
Right, but you haven't done cloning with human eggs.
No, and of course we don't believe in experimenting with human eggs or embryos until we're ready to execute the real thing, because we are opposed to experimenting with human embryos for the idea of creating human embryos and killing them.
Would you allow me to be devil's advocate and say, well then aren't Kathy and Bill going to end up being guinea pigs?
Well, you can say that. I think that when a new technology is pioneered and is developed, you can say that the people that receive this treatment first are obviously guinea pigs to a certain degree. But, that's one way of looking at it. I don't think that they do feel that way, and we don't feel like that any of those people are guinea pigs. They're just really people that are going to go first, and then during the first team we have 6 or 7 couples. Then as soon as we complete this team, we're going to go on to the next team, which may be 7 to 10 couples. So somebody's got to go first. But we feel like that the level of confidence of accomplishing this particular puzzle here is very good, and our team feels very good about coming up with healthy children born from such effort.
All right. You say that you're going to check for abnormalities, right?
Yes.
But, as I understand it, Kathy and Bill will, after they've taken care of what they need to do, which is provide the DNA, Kathy's DNA, they'll fly back to the United States and just wait. And it's the surrogate who has the baby in her. And even though, nobody will necessarily know that she's got a cloned baby in her stomach, but doesn't she have to have this special medical care to make sure that she doesn't have an abnormality?
Oh, absolutely. We do have the experts, maternal fetal medicine experts, that would monitor those pregnancies from day one of conception until the birth of that child. And we intend to study the behavior of those fetuses, the growth, the measurements, the deficiencies, the assets, the whatever, and then, of course, learn from those procedures as such. Now, this is something that the animal cloners have never even dreamed of doing. And this is really why it gives us a tremendous advantage over the animal cloners, is that in the animal business of reproduction,
yes,
we only do it right. We cannot afford to do it wrong.
Michael Gillen and Panos Zavos, thank you so much. And still ahead, we'll hear from a critic of Dr. Zavos' procedure and methods. Before we go to the break, we are sure that you have questions about cloning to have a baby. Email us at ConnieChungTonight@cnn.com, and we'll see if we can get some of them answered.